Colorado and Miami threats to Florida State's 2024 recruiting class. We're going to talk about that today and a little bit more. He's Michael Langston, the recruiting analyst for Warchant TV, warchant.com. All the coverage over there on the website, warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang, and today 2-0 starts for some name programs like Colorado, like Miami, who are looking to make a splash and change the perception of what their programs are. But, Michael, before we get to them, Florida State has started 2-0, and they're blowing teams out on the regular. What has that done for the Seminoles on the trail, and what are you hearing from 2024 prospects and beyond about Florida State's impressive start?
I think it's really good. I was kind of looking for, kind of the statement they would do because you're coming off a big win, short week. They came in there little sloppy, obviously, with the drops and all that stuff in the first quarter and first half. But, once that stuff was, taken care of and adjusted to, I think people saw kind of, what FSU does and what they can do to teams, that really just throttle them. I mean, this Southern Miss team is a team that went to a bowl last year. So, this isn't like, certainly they're outmanned, but it just shows you what FSU does with what they have. And I think a lot of kids, a lot of recruits look at this team and they're like, we feel like this team is a playoff contender. And I think they kind of showed that again in this game because I think kids want to see what you do on the regular, not just like what do you do in the big game. And I think they consistently are now seeing that this is a program that's up there with the top tier teams, like Michigan and Georgia, and you have to mention them consistently, and that's what they talk about when they talk about FSU. So I don't think their value has been any higher than at this point. And I've told people even after last week that this is a higher buzz than even I saw when Jimbo was here. So it's a different level of buzz, and it's um, there's a difference between the two, kind of eras where Jimbo is more about winning and all this stuff, where Mike is more about relationships, and now the product's caught up with the relationships, and now you have a combination there that's just really unique and special. That I think the recruiting momentum has never been as high as I can remember since I've been doing this for FSU in what they are right now. I think it's the buzz is extremely high. Yeah, you're not going to hear as much when you beat the crap out of Southern Miss, but there's a consistency that recruits feel top-notch guys. I'm not talking, and I think you're going to see some guys that you haven't seen me mention when they start hosting, good weekends like the Duke weekend, the Virginia Tech weekend, and absolutely, the big Miami weekend. I think you're going to see guys that you haven't seen on FSU's campus in a while because of that dramatic shift in what they're doing. I have to kind of shape my like prediction, so to speak, of what the top end ceiling is for this class. I think before I didn't think there was a way to be top five. I feel pretty confident at this stage that it's going to be a top five class, and then I think it's got a really good chance to be a 2 or 3 class overall when you finish this thing off. So I think there's a lot of dramatic, buzz with FSU, but as you mentioned at the outset, there's now a little competition
Yeah.
from those guys over there in Coral Gables. So I think there'll be a little more of a challenge now. Obviously, Florida also could add to the picture. They play Tennessee this weekend, so but if they lose that game, you can really start jumping on some of those, Florida commits and find out, hey, are you committed? Because there's some guys on that roster or that commitment list that I think if this continues, that you could see FSU getting pretty strongly involved with a few of those guys. And I gave a tip earlier last week at a guy like Kai Bates who's committed to LSU. That's one 4-star DB that officially visited FSU. I think that's a guy that really keep your eye on. I've heard a lot of buzz about FSU, so that's one to watch. So I think there's several guys that kind of fall into that category. But overall, I think recruiting's been as strong as it's ever been.
That's crazy, Michael, because you've been around covering this thing, seen a lot of different coaches, some legendary recruiters that the momentum would be that strong. And for Florida State fans with the noon kick this weekend against Boston College, assuming that kick is correct with the weather patterns of the tropical event that's going on in the Atlantic, we'll see. But we can all gather together Saturday night to watch Florida and Tennessee. We know what we're all going to root for, but further dismantling of Florida's class could come. That's on the downside of things. But again, I would term, Michael, that Miami is a better football team right now than Colorado is, but perception is reality, and exceeding expectations helps. So you could pick which one you want to lead with here, but 2-0 starts for both of those programs. You know that Deion's going to be able to get into the living rooms of high quality 4 stars and 5 stars with his charisma, but now he might have something to back it up with. Even if Colorado wins 4 games the rest of the season, Michael, and they go 6-6, go to a bowl, that is miles above the expectations preseason. So you got something to pitch there. And then Miami just looks good. Like Miami legit, this win over Texas A&M is a statement win. So as it pertains to Florida State battles head to head, or momentum themselves, independent of Florida State, however you want to run with it, what does a 2-0 start for a program like Miami or Colorado do in the greater recruiting landscape that you're covering?
I will start with Colorado because that's the lesser impact I feel to FSU in regards to location and where they're at, and just recruits that I hear that they're involved with. I think FSU is much more consistent with Miami, and that's more personal. That gets into what they're doing. But I think Colorado is the story of the year. Like no matter what you can not like Dion or you could like Dion. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not. The story's there, the buzz is there. They're already gone way beyond what I think people's expectations were. I think a lot of people thought they get blown out against TCU that first game. You're playing a team that played for a national title last year. Yes, I know that is absolutely not the same team that they had, but still, perception's reality, so it doesn't matter. It's the perception of what TCU was, and then two, come back home. TCU now game days going to Colorado against a nobody Colorado State team who they'll just destroy. But I think you're talking about 3-0, and then you have games against guys like Arizona and Stanford, and even maybe in Arizona State that I feel like are winnable games. So if you win those games, that's like 5 wins already right there. And then if they can, God forbid, if they can upset one of those teams, that are really good, like Oregon, and USC, or Utah, somebody that is really good, they're going to go to the stratosphere as far as what they're doing. But overall, I don't think it really impacts FSU tremendously. I know Dion will obviously try to go after some FSU targets, but location wise, that's really going to hurt. And then two, I think the thing to watch for me going forward is, let's say Dion wins 6 or 7 games. It's going to happen. You're going to hear it where there's going to be better jobs that open up.
Yeah.
Obviously, Texas A&M has a lot of issues with what's going on. They're seemingly not happy with Jimbo. I saw a lot of disconnect when I watched that game. Miami was very impressive, but there's a lot of disconnect going on in Texas A&M. So let's just say hypothetically that Texas A&M doesn't have as an opening and Dion's possibly there. That's a place I could see him going if they push. And if he gets a top-notch SEC school, I think that's something considered that will, I think, impact FSU. So, but right now, I think while it's the national story of the year, I think Colorado is. I think it's a slight impact compared to what we see with Miami, and then with Miami, to me that's more okay. Got some competition now. I was very impressed with what I saw on the field. Obviously, I felt like they did everything. They knew they needed this game. Like I circled 3 games for Miami for during the season. I thought it was FSU, um, Texas A&M game, and then the Clemson game. I thought those are 3 games. I felt like they had to win one of those to kind of show the product. And then this one, they won. I felt like even when they were up 24, even when it was like 24-17 or something like that, I felt like they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish from a recruiting perspective, showing what the product is. Now, that's just the first step, though, because we've seen that. Obviously, FSU had to deal with that. They beat LSU, but it's about what you do the rest of the year, how consistent your product is. So, let's say also hypothetically, Miami loses to North Carolina, and then they later lose to get upset by somebody like Georgia Tech or Temple. Well, that's going to shift it down a little bit. So right now, I'd say it's a pretty high positive. I think they got a pretty strong boom and a pretty strong impact as far as guys that are in the South Florida area, more so the impact of South Florida area guys. I think guys like Booker Pickett, whose dad was a legacy there. I think FSU was in decent position or pretty good position before that. Now I think Miami's probably the favorite. So guys like that, I think it's going to have a solid effect and a boom on, we already saw them get a 2025 commitment from a good 4-star receiver. Now they was already favoring Miami, but still it shows you the impact it's already had. So I think it's going to make competition for all those South Florida kids that are. It's going to be a considerably harder, especially if the product consistently continues. guys like Jeremiah Smith and Zaquan Patterson and all those guys and talented players in South Florida. I do still feel, I know people would ask me, Lane McCoy, he's from South Florida, he's committed to FSU. I still feel good about that one, although Miami, that performance certainly helps keep them in the picture, but I still feel good about it. But I think it's going to make it harder for FSU to, get those guys. You have to really work and continue to do what they're doing. But I've said this to our fans on the PRB consistently, but as long as FSU is doing what they're doing, it's going to be hard for teams to compete with them. And certainly it sets up a massive game when FSU plays Miami at the end of the year, late in the year. If FSU can go in there and smack them around again, that's going to really dramatically shift, I think, things again. They'll see the improvement in Miami, but I also think they know, hey, they're a long ways away from what FSU is compared to what they are. So I think right now it's a good boost, a good recruiting momentum boost for Miami. So certainly they're adding more competition now to FSU.
So that's what's going on here. Michael is saying that it's Miami over Colorado, absolutely, in terms of threat value. But if Florida State continues to do what they're doing, then top 2, top 3 is most certainly possible. So, Michael, what I'm gathering here, because before the season started, you're looking at recruiting weekends, and I think later in the season probably helps if you can have a November game of consequence. Miami was nice, because of the name of it, but it wasn't about the quality of the game. It was just going to be the atmosphere of the rivalry. Well, now that's changed. That's completely changed. If Miami continues to play like this is going to feel like Tallahassee circa 1996 or something along those lines for that game, and that's critical. But that's to come. We'll see if Miami gets to that place. They do have to play North Carolina and Clemson this year on the schedule, so we'll know a lot more about Miami when that time comes. I do want to follow up on one thing about this weekend in the blowout against Southern Miss. We talk about it a lot, about development for the program, that when you blow a team out, you get younger players and they're able to play and get some experience at the college football level. What does that do for recruiting, though? Maybe for 24 kids or 25 kids that are seeing a lot of true freshmen roll out there. Like, I'm not necessarily talking about automatic and early impact players that, they're studs, so they're going to play early. I'm talking about when you can see the bench is empty and early playing time. How much does that matter, if at all, to a kid that might be coming in next year or the year after to see that, hey, I could play in a lot of blowouts here at Florida State immediately?
I think it matters a lot. Probably not in the way people want it to matter or think it matters, because a lot of people think, like, if you play young guys and they're big impacts, like, well, I might not get on the field. But it's like it's the opposite way with recruits, where they see younger guys, they're kind of like they're in the mindset like, well, damn, they're not afraid to play these top guys. So I know if I go in there, like we see Conrad Hussey, he's there in serious situations. He's not in there just like with the backups. And I mean, he's in serious situations. And we even saw Hakeem having a really big third down catch that really kept the momentum going, and they scored on that drive and put the game away. But I think the more these kids see these guys get on the field early, and that FSU doesn't care whether you're a freshman, whether you're a sophomore, I think it has a dramatic effect. And that's kind of a lot of these guys. I think that's really, the winning is really good. That helps. But I think kids seeing guys get on the field so early, I think that's really jumped up their interest at FSU, that these guys, you're not having a situation where you got to wait 2 years to get on the field. They're kind of like, they're going to be there. And I think it was a lot of eyebrows raised. I think when they saw Brock Glenn come in as the third guy, coming in. I mean, that was the eyebrow raiser to a lot of guys. Like, okay, he's playing better than everyone, so I think they'd like that, and that really stood out to a lot of recruits. So I think this is helping dramatically get more guys on campus and really build even more momentum because of their willingness to play the best of the best.
College football is the best. We had hopes for Florida State and Florida State's offense. They're living up to it. So the expectation is being met. Even though they don't look perfect, they're still putting up astronomical numbers. We expected the Clemson game to be the headliner for the conference this year and the headliner Florida State schedule. Might not be. It's a noon kick, nondescript. Clemson might not even be ranked in both polls at the time of the game. And we expected Miami to be a pushover. How things can change.
Yep, that's probably going to be like a 7:30, 8 p.m. kickoff, to just make a educated guess. And I was like stunned when I saw the Clemson time. I'm like, wow, like how quickly things can change. And it's like recruiting. It could shift, where your product can really change as far as how people view you. And I think FSU certainly has capitalized on it. And in a way, I know it's going to sound silly to people, but in a way, this game against Southern Miss impressed me more than what they did with LSU, because LSU, it's easy to get up for those guys. That's a top game. Everyone knows the intensity, the pressure. It's harder to get settled in and set in for a team. You're playing Southern Miss, where you're a 30-point favorite. You're supposed to win, but to go out there and just absolutely destroy them and take care of it the way they did in that first half, at the end of the first half, and then and beginning of the third quarter, I think it speaks volumes to a lot of recruits. And I was more impressed with that part, because I think it's really, to me, it's easy for kids to get up for LSU's and the Clemson's and in those type of games. So I think it speaks to kind of the dramatic shift we're seeing of how FSU views each week. It's a consistent each week. They're going to be locked in, and they want to consistently, as Mike said, yeah, they're number 3, but we have much higher views of our program than anybody else is going to have, as far as what we expect. It doesn't change how we look at things or how we prepare. So I think as long as that continues, I think it will keep that strong sustaining power of recruiting going.
The football team has aspirations to be better than number 3, and so does the recruiting class. He's Michael Langston, who says that Deion Sanders is not a threat unless he does so well that he takes a new job. I like that you're floating that out there already. More coverage.
Yeah,
What's up?
I was just saying, well, you gotta do hypotheticals, guys, because you never know. But now, if Dion does start beating some good teams, then I think it's something we'll start talking more about. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, where things are at right now.
He's Michael Langston, the senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com. Head over to the website, the PRB. There's going to be a live chat on Thursday night with Michael. He's been doing these forever, but we branded it now. It's called AWA, Ask Warchant Anything. 6 p.m. for members only of Warchant.com. Sign up today. It's just $1 for your first month. Give us a shot. You'll stick around. And always check us out here on Warchant TV. Hit the like button underneath the video. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you next time on Warchant TV.